Okay, so this is MERN B. This is the video where I am going to show you how to deploy your MERN app that you created. And let me go ahead. This is the Getting Started with MERN B document that's on the web course. So you need a brand new DigitalOcean account, and it needs to be naked without all the LAMP stuff, okay? You could actually remove it from your previous droplet, but it's a lot easier if you don't. You just get a new one. It won't really save you any money anyway. Okay, so you need to point your domain to the droplet IP address. I've already done that. Mine is cop4331-5.com. Remember, what it says here, don't create a LAMP droplet. Just create a naked droplet from the DigitalOcean dashboard. Now, somewhere along the way, you're going to have to SSH into it. And you can either use SSH from your command prompt on Windows or Mac. I'm going to actually go ahead and just use the DigitalOcean capability. So DigitalOcean makes it really easy to... So if I go here, here's my DigitalOcean. If I go to Access, it'll give me a little button that says Launch Droplet Console. And so really what that is, that's an SSH console. Okay, and there I am. And I'm going to go ahead and maximize that so it's a little bit easier to read. So that's the sort of getting started thing. Those are the first steps you need to do. Okay, so here we are back to our getting started document. And what I wanted to point out is that right now the front end is hitting the API or hitting the Express, hitting the server app, which is on the localhost. Remember how we had everything going to localhost. And if you take a look here, I say we need to actually change that for me to 4331-5.com instead of localhost, because otherwise, once I deploy to the server, it's not going to know where to look. All right, now, of course, you're not going to use 4331-5. You're going to use whatever your domain is, okay? And it's actually going to be a really bad idea if we go ahead and recompile every time we want to run it on localhost or we want to run it on the server. So what we want to do here, all this code is in login and card UI. That's where you do the fetch. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this conditional function, so that and this automatic variable will tell you if it's development or production. Okay, so you can query this and say, okay, well, if it's not development, we'll dynamically create a path to the server. Otherwise, we'll dynamically create a path to localhost. And notice that this string is going to be API/login, API/search cards, API/add card. Okay. Then we need to change the fetches in all three of those places. So we're using that build path function, and this way the build path function will worry about, are we local or are we trying to get to the server, okay? Now there's a very small detail you need to do, and that's going to be to install .env in the front end and in the server. So I'm going to do that right now. I have to go to Visual Studio, so let me get out of here. So I'm going to say npm install .env. My batch file might actually already do that, but I'm not positive. So here I'm going to say npm install .env. And that's the thing that's going to manage our environmental variables, okay? And I'll explain why we have to do that shortly. Okay, and then we actually have to create an environmental file. And the environmental file is going to keep our database connection string. The problem is if we upload our code to GitHub and it's got the database connection string, like within 3 seconds the entire world is going to have your connection string, and since it's connected to your credit card, you will be in big trouble. All right. And then we're going to add our connection string inside of the env file. And make sure you add .env to your gitignore so you don't accidentally upload the .env file to to the server. And here we're going to do a little edit there, and I'm going to show you all that right now. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take a look at what we've got. I'm going to go into components. Remember, I said in cardui.tsx I was going to change that. I was going to put this function in there, and I did that. Remember, you're going to edit this for whatever your domain is. And then inside of here, I went ahead and said build path, add card, API/add card. And here I said build path, API/search cards. And then login.tsx, I added the same function. By the way, we're going to fix that MERN C. MERN C has, so that violates the DRY principle. But here is the login call to the API. Okay. Also, here's my .env file. Okay, you notice that my .env file has my connection string. And in server.js, you're going to notice now, instead of having a hard-coded connection string here, it's getting it from the environmental file. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure all this still works. There's the server starting. Let's see. Oops. npm start. Not sure if I did that right. There we go. Okay. And let's go ahead and run development server npm run dev. And we just want to make sure this works before we start to put it onto the server. And let me see, I think this probably needs a refresh here. Okay, so regel cop 4331. Hopefully I didn't break it. Okay, so we're good. So what I'm asking you to do is, before you get too far, just make sure that you haven't really broken anything. So now my app is working with those changes. The changes are, let me go back to my document. My changes are, my connection string is in an environmental file. I changed this so that I have a conditional path. All of the fetches are using the conditional path. Okay, and then I went ahead and edited server.js. Okay, so now we're sure that we didn't make a mistake, and we can move on. Okay, so with the LAMP stack application, we actually just copied files up to the server and it worked just fine. But that's not going to work, because what happens is, for a React app that you deploy, you have to actually build it. It's the same as compiling it. It's very roughly equivalent to a compile. And then you copy that up there, okay? So let's go ahead and build this. I'll run the build function. So we build it here. So from front end, just say npm run build. And it's pretty fast. Will probably take about 20 seconds to go through and build. And you'll notice now there's a dist folder, okay? There's a dist folder. Right here you can see it, dist. Okay, that's where everything is. And really it's in one big lump. So it makes it really easy to send to your server. Let me see if I can find this real quick. So if I take a look in front end, there's a dist folder. And notice it's really only 3 things. And I'm not even going to send this v.svg up there because we don't need it. But I'm going to send this folder and this up. Notice how easy that makes it to actually deploy. Okay. So let me go back to my getting started document. So that's what you'll see. So now we've already logged onto the SSH, onto the server. And what we want to do is we want to prepare the server by doing all of that. Okay, so here I am back to this SSH thing. So I'm going to say sudo apt get update. And installing Node and NPM are a little bit time consuming, so it won't take that long. Sudo apt get install Node.js. Sudo npm apt get install. This is the longest one. npm. Oops. Sorry. Sudo apt get install npm. And we'll just wait about 1 minute for this to install. I'm going to go ahead and pause if I can. Okay, so here I'm unpaused because it's finished. Okay, sudo npm cache clean. And I'm just doing these things for safety's sake. You actually probably really don't need to do them, but I don't like to take chances. I don't want to make the demo gods mad at me. Now this next thing that I'm going to do is to install the actual server. If you'll remember from LAMP, we used Apache for our web server. Now we're going to use something called Nginx, which is a lot more flexible and will make it easier for us to support the MERN app. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna put, this is my getting started, this is all the stuff I just did, okay? But one of the things, there's something we need to configure for Nginx, and it's right there. So we're gonna navigate to this site, we're gonna open this file, and then we're gonna look for this. So let me move that out of the way. I just wanted to show you, okay, so cd etc nginx cd sites available, and then we're going to use everybody's favorite editor, VI. So let me go ahead and scroll on down to this. Let's see, I am going to remove this stuff here, except for I'm going to leave index.html there. For the server name, I'm going to put cop4331-5.com, and just in case I want to implement www, I'll put that there. I don't have it in DNS right now, but I might, who knows, I might eventually want to put it in there. Okay, and this down here is, this try files needs a number of changes that we have to make. So we're going to say try files $URI slash, and then slash index.html. Okay. Now I have noticed that if you don't reboot the server, it doesn't always pick up that edit that I made, so I went ahead and rebooted the server. Okay, so we have this configured. So it's in the same location. You can actually change that. And this file index.nginxdbn.html, that actually will not be invoked. So we can do VI, we've done this before, index.html. This is just what we did for the lamp stack. HTML. I'm going to try really hard not to make any mistakes. In class I have people saying, hey, you made a mistake, but here I don't. We love COP 4331. And this is just a really simple, this is the same simple thing that we did for the lamp drop, the lamp project. Okay, let me just cat index.html, just to make sure it's there. Okay. So if we go out here, COP 4331-5, now this is supposing that my DNS is already picked up. Okay, we love COP 4331, nice, okay. So that works great. That's not what we want, but we just want to make sure that Nginx and the server are working correctly. Okay, so in order to copy the build files to the server, I have a bunch of SCP commands, which you're not going to use probably. I'm going to go ahead and use FileZilla. So that'll just make it a lot easier. This reboot the server thing there, I've already done that, so I don't have to do that anymore. Okay, so I have FileZilla already set up. It's connected here, and you can tell from the path that that's the server. And over here, let me open up front end and dist. Okay, all I have to do is send assets and index.html, and it's going to make sure I want to overwrite index.html. So there I just set the front end, and if I come here, I should be able to do a refresh here and see the front end. Okay, so there it is. My front end's already up there. Now, you're going to notice that I can't log in because the API is not responding. Notice it said, okay, and the reason the API is not responding is because it's not there. There is no API on the server. Yes, you have it on your local machine, but this is no longer looking to your local machine for the API. It's looking to your server for the API, okay? Okay, so here's what I've got. Now what we're going to do, all of this, from this point on, is to set up the API on the server. So I arbitrarily said within this var directory, I'm going to make something called cards server. And it is pretty arbitrary, actually. You can put it anywhere you want. What I'm going to suggest, though, keep it here. Keep it where I have it, just so you can sort of follow along and make sure everything's the same. So make dir cards server cd cards server. Okay, obviously there's nothing there, but that's where we're going to put it, and that's where our the Express server is going to be found. Now, what I'm going to do, we're not going to copy the node modules because A, they're huge, and we can easily recreate them on the server. So we're not going to copy that, but we're going to copy everything else over. Okay. So we're going to do that. We're going to copy everything over. Oops. So we go here, and we're going to use FileZilla. And so in FileZilla, we're going to go back up here, and we're going to have to refresh this because it probably did not pick up. Okay, so here's card server, and now let me back up here, and we're gonna send over the environmental variable, the environmental file, package.json, package lock.json, and server. Okay, so we're not sending the node modules because we can rebuild those pretty easily. Okay, so we put that. We send everything over, so that's our server. Well, let's go back to our. Notice that this list is 100% step by step. Okay, now we're going to do npm install, and what that's going to do, that will actually build. It'll refresh. If I do ls, you can see everything's there. But if I say npm install, that will add back the node underscore modules folder and download all the dependencies and libraries. So if I do ls, you'll see that that's already done. Okay. Okay, so that's done. And this last thing is really important. So right now it says node mon inside the package.json. That's good for local, but now you need to change it for actually node. So vi package.json. We're just going to make that one little change down here. If you don't do that, it will not work at all. So don't forget that. So just make it node and not node mon. Okay. Now here is the situation. You could run the server. You could just say npm start and it would run. The problem is that if the physical server ever reboots or something happens, it's not going to restart. So we're going to use a utility called PM2 that will help us restart a server.js every time. So I'm going to go through these commands right here and I'll explain them as I go. Okay, so npm install -g pm2. That just installs the utility on the computer. And this utility has been around forever, so a lot of people do use it. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually start the server app, server.js, server.js name express server. You can name that whatever you want. So that actually starts it, which is nice. So you see it there running. But now what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's going to be it's going to start up with this. So we see PM2 startup, and then finally PM2 save, and it's going to save it. So that will always start when the server reboots. Now there's one last little detail. We are running everything. We're running our API endpoints on port 5000, right? You can change that if you want to. I know Macs sometimes work. Some of the Macs, I know if we're having trouble with that and they changed to 5001, it was okay. So if you change it, you have to change it in server.js, and you have to change the those fetch, the build path function. But in addition to that, you need to open up the firewall so that the firewall can get through. So we're going to say sudo ufw allow 5000. And pretty easy. So the card server should be running. And if I come over here, I have noticed that I actually usually need to do a hard refresh in order to get this to work. So there you go. It's running off the server. You can see the path up there. It's hitting MongoDB. That's all there is to MERN B. We are done.